Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. It's Tom Lenoble. It's great to have you with me again. I have someone really special today and unusual for this show. It's Blake Serrano, and he is the owner of Sew-Snip. Yes, Sew-Snip. We're going to learn what that means and about Blake's story here shortly. Welcome to the show, Blake. How are you?
I am excellent. I am excellent. Thank you for having me. I'm
It's
excited.
great to have you here. You and I had a great conversation, and I thought that we could have an even better one here today on the show. So that's what we're going to do. So I want to know for our viewers a little about your company and what was it that sparked your idea to start it?
All right. So I have an online fabric business and I started it about 2.5 years ago. And prior to starting it, I had zero experience in the world of fabric. I never touched fabric outside of my clothes. I never sewed a day in my life, didn't know the terminology. I actually come from a tech background. I was one of those kids in seventh grade making compute like programming games and making my own web pages and stuff way back then. So yeah, as we get into the story, I think it's fairly interesting how I transitioned from tech to textiles.
Interesting. I love that twist on words. And I want to know, what was it that sparked your idea, and when did you know and say to yourself, this is my path?
Yeah, so to get a bit technical, I during COVID, like a lot of people, I was at home and I was reflecting and I was, all in on my tech career. I was 12, 13 years into the industry and I really enjoyed it. But I wanted to test out starting my own business. I've worked for tech startups. I know you're deep in that world and you've been around for a while with those with some really big names. And so I just wanted to give it my own shot. And my first business was a app and it failed miserably. I spent about $40,000 building an app that no one wanted. And I learned that lesson the hard way. So my second product was a toy, an actual racetrack that I made for my son. And that one made me a little bit of money, but I learned some more difficult lessons, such as a toy is a very seasonal item, and it's also an item that people don't come back to buy over and over. So I took all of these lessons and I went out and I tried to just apply what I learned and look for my next business venture. I also was going down this path of the idea that there are thousands of people, specifically in America and all over the world, but in my case, America, who are retiring, who own businesses and have no one to take over their business. So, being that I spent over a decade as a tech consultant, my plan was to find businesses, specifically an industry that was really lacking on tech. This was something I did as a consultant was, hey, I did a lot in healthcare, so on and so forth, businesses that just needed tech. And so I wanted to apply the same thing maybe to small businesses. And I dabbled in several different things, and everything I did, I learned a lesson. And eventually, I met a lady who owned a local fabric store, and she wanted to close her shop. And she had all of this fabric, and she didn't know what to do with it. And I approached her how I had approached most of these business owners as, let me just help you. I don't want anything from you. I just want to help you. And what I was getting out of it is I was learning to take the lessons I learned and see how they applied to that business or that industry. And I just kind of kept helping people out. So, hey, I'm helping you, but I'm also learning if this would work for me. So I was helping her with the website that we were going to build to liquidate all of her fabric. And she literally was like, after like the second day of working together, she goes, what if I gave you the fabric and you build your own website and you sell it? And I go, that's not a bad idea. And so within 24 hours, I created a Shopify, e-commerce site, created a Facebook, created Instagram. These were all things I learned how to do in my previous failures of business. And within 24 hours, I got 10 plus sales. And that really was like, I went down my checklist of check, 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 check. And I haven't stopped since then.
I love this, Blake, because what we see sometimes, or I have certainly in my career, is what we perceive as some of our mistakes or failures turn out to be our best successes. And you just articulated one beautifully where something that felt like was not a true success that you were looking for, but you used the tools for it and allowed you to launch something else that appears to bring you a lot of joy. So what a great story for us today. So here's what I want to know. Um, we become who we are today for a reason. There's a backstory. There's somebody that was in our life when we were younger, a role model, or someone that was in our life that sparked who we are today and made us, who we become. And here you are, a tech guy working in engineering and working in tech, building apps yourself at a very young age. And look at what you're doing now. Who was that person for you when you were younger that was part of molding who Blake is today?
I had a very unusual upbringing. As you and I spoke, I think you and I went through similar things of I never stayed in one place very long. I was born in New Orleans. I lived in Texas. I lived in Hawaii. I lived in Virginia. I lived in Florida. I lived in New York. And so I would say, first and foremost, my exposure to different cultures in America really helped form me. And there's several people along the way, one being a stepfather that I had at a young age was a computer programmer in the 90s. And the reason we moved to Hawaii was because he worked remotely in the 90s with dial-up internet. He would fax his spreadsheets and so he always had computer books. He was subscribed to all the computer magazines. And though he may not have directly worked with me with computers every day, he gave me exposure to it. And I love to tell this story how he would always give me his second or third computer, the hand me down, and he would always have his new one. And he would always tell me, don't touch the new computer. And of course, he would leave. What would I do? Touch the computer, and I would break it. And so that really forced me to figure out how to fix the computer before he got back. And he was very graceful in the fact that he would always know, he knew it was almost a joke. And he would come home, and if I couldn't fix it, he and I would sit down and fix it. So he really gave me that tech experience and exposure to it. And he was one of the few people growing up that knew about computers more than I did. Then when I was a teenager, I moved to Florida, from Hawaii to Florida. And my cousin Carlos, my mom's cousin, so my second cousin, he took me under his wing. And Carlos came here from Cuba, dropped out of school in middle school, basically never went to school after middle school, and came to America and built houses with his father. And he owned a trucking company. And he took me under his wing and knew nothing about computers. And so we helped each other out because I helped him integrate technology into his business, and he taught me how to run a business. And so he really, really got me going on this idea that you don't need a lot of education. You just have to sort of figure it out and persist. And that was to this day, Carlos and I still talk
That's
constantly, and
really
he's still a
great.
big inspiration. Yep.
I love this story too. So tell me, what personal values have guided you from the very start?
I've always tried to look out for the little guy, so to speak. I've always felt like I was the little guy. I was always a runt. I was always the smallest. And it's funny, I have a 6-year-old son. He's the smallest too. And I see it with him. And so I've always known what it's like to be the smaller one or the new kid or the underdog. So that's always been a passion of mine of just helping the person who looks lost that no one else wants to help.
That's great. I love this story too. Your son's lucky to have that role model in you, Blake. So tell me, has anybody not seen a personal risk you've taken? Like, did you take a personal risk that nobody knows about
Hmm.
on this journey?
Well, I'm a pretty loud, outspoken person, but and I've talked about this, like where I'm at right now, just from a purely materialistic standpoint, I was essentially living the American dream. I had a great job. I made really good money. I had a we built a new house. I had a movie theater in my house. I had everything a human being could want. And I gave all of that up to start a business. Literally, I sold everything and I started completely over. And a lot of people do know that story, but I like to tell it because I was 37 years old when I started that journey. And I've heard someone say a lot of people make it 80% up the mountain and realize the only way to get to the other 20% is to go back down and start over. And I felt that was me. And I took the hits. And like I said, I mean, I literally half of my budget I blew on that first app. And, the biggest lesson I learned from that was you don't need a lot of money to get started. And in my case, I do better when I don't have a lot of money because it forces me to figure things out that I would have just spent money on. Um, so as far as personal sacrifices, I'd say materialistic and comfort. I've sacrificed comfort to the fullest extent.
If somebody was watching you back then, what would surprise them the most about Blake today?
That I'm selling fabric. I mean, like Tech Blake, like you did what? So the way the story goes, and I got an offer from Facebook. You and I talked about this. And so that sort of gave me this aha moment of like, if I'm good enough for Facebook, then I should be good enough to go out on my own. If they're willing to pay me X amount of money, I gotta be worth 10 times that. And so none of us 3 years ago would have guessed I would sell fabric. That's the last thing I would have guessed.
How did you get your first traction with customers?
Facebook, going back to Facebook, like I I will not shut up about Facebook ads. I just won't stop talking about it. I learned how to do that with my very first business and I separate from that 40,000 I spent on the app, I probably burned another $25,000 on hiring marketing agencies to set up ads for me that got me nowhere. So I was forced to learn how to do Facebook ads myself. And that's it. I can tell you right now if a business is a good idea or not within 2 days, just spending $20 on Facebook ads.
Wow. There's another side business for you someday when the fabric is under control, Blake. There's a lot of people that want to tap into what you just said.
Yes.
I can hear people now, viewers going, "Oh, I need to talk to Blake about that. $20 to be able to know that answer is a easy spend, right?"
Yep.
So tell me, you've shared with us about some of your risky decisions. What was one of the biggest risky decisions, and what gave you the courage to do it, to act on it?
Yeah, I would say we're in October now. I would say May of last year. So May 2024, I was down to my last $10,000. And that was enough runway for me to personally live off of for about 3 or 4 months. And my fabric business at the time was basically breaking even. And I got an offer to buy out another fabric shop. And guess how much that was going to cost me? $10,000. And I literally spent my rent money and the last dime I had on investing in that fabric. And it took 2 or 3 months to recoup that money. And that was a nightmare. That's been some of the hardest months of my life, literally. It was very difficult, but it worked and it paid off.
Wow, that's really great. How does Blake decide when to pivot or just keep pushing through?
Man, that is, whew, that's the $1 million question right there. I've been through enough experience now to know what works and what doesn't. And I find that it's very technical at this point. If we're talking specifically about business, it's it's very technical. Like I'm kind of going through it right now where I've hit a plateau of I grew, my business went from, I'll just be transparent here. My business went from $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month in about 3 months. And now it's been stagnant at $100,000 a month for the last 3 or 4 months because I need to do something. I need to quote unquote pivot to take that next level up.
Wow.
And so, from a technical standpoint, I can just see the numbers and I can go, something needs to change if I want to grow. If I want to stay the same, keep going, but I don't. So now I'm in that position of, the numbers don't lie. So, to give a simple answer now to your question, I know when to pivot based on the data.
Interesting. So tell me this, what's the hardest no you ever had to say in the business so far?
Hmm. I'm going through that right now also. One of my earlier business models, so I'll just give a little quick backstory. Once I found the first lady Pat to get her fabric from, I knew there was more Pats out there. So I built an email list of fabric shops across the country and I just started blasting them out emails. And I was like, do you want to close your fabric store? I'll help you. And I quickly got an email back from a lady named Jenny. And Jenny said, hey, I just recently bought my own fabric store and I inherited a lot of fabric I don't want. Would you be
Mm,
interested in listing it on your website? And then when you sell it, I'll fulfill it to the customer. So, a third party marketplace idea. And so the light bulb went off, cha-ching. And so then I pivoted from trying to buy fabric businesses to let me just sell fabric for existing businesses because this is a lot less work for me. Now, fast forward to today, that sort of pivoted, and I have a big warehouse and I'm in with suppliers and I'm getting a ton of fabric myself. And now I'm starting to pivot away from selling for other shops all the way to the point where shops I've been working with for 2 years now, I'm having to tell them I can no longer sell their fabric for them. And there's been some tough conversations in that in the last
yes,
month.
yes, interesting. You defined your business better, which impacted what they were doing, and but you're clear on what you're doing. So I like that. Tell me this. What are you most proud of? What impact are you most proud of? Not professionally, but personally.
I would say following my gut, and it took a long time. And I think my sacrifice I said of leaving my career and starting businesses and failing, that I'm very proud of that to this day. And I think of it as if my gut says yes, but I'm too cowardly and I say no, that's worse than if my gut says then the other way. I'd rather listen to my gut and my gut be wrong than not listen to my gut and my gut be right. And
Eh,
so, yeah, I've learned I have to go with what my gut says, whether it's right or wrong. It's led me the right path 90% of the time.
I'm a big believer that this, as you call it, the gut, these hunches, our intuition that we get to listen to. It happens to me in just little day-to-day life. I can do some little thing and think, I shouldn't put that there, or I need to move that over.
Mm.
And when I don't listen, I usually come back and have a mess to clean up. And I use that as an example for bigger things, as you know, what I'm talking about that happen where you just don't listen for whatever reason and you realize, so I try really hard to listen as well. I think it's really something to do. So tell me this, Blake. I'm sure we want to know this. How do you define success beyond metrics?
I think giving back. I live this cliche, and I'm not some extreme example, but I quote unquote got the money, right? I hit my goals in my career and I bought the things I wanted to buy, and I realized it wasn't about the money. I, and it's so cliche. And when people have money and people don't have money, they don't want to hear it. But it's so true. The money does nothing for you. It really doesn't. And so I sat back and I decided, I tried to figure out, I took time and tried to figure out what is it that I want then? If it's not money, if it's not quote unquote success, if it's not status, what is it? And I realized it's giving back and helping people. And I started volunteering different organizations. And again, just going back to being the kid that sat with the kid that didn't have anyone to sit with at the lunch table. Like that's my passion and that's what I want to do forever. And the more I can give back, the more successful I feel I
Yeah.
have become.
Well, Blake, let me tell you what you're exhibiting because I actually am very, 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 very fond of this. And I've created even a keynote and a workshop around it called the philanthropic mindset. Because as I've shared with you, I'm a philanthropist. It's why I do everything I do. And people will say to me, "Oh, Tom, I can't wait till I have money so I can be a philanthropist too." What you're talking about, which is what true philanthropy is the philanthropic mindset because our smile, a simple hello, giving of our time, things that don't require money are philanthropy. So I love that you shared that with the viewers because I'm a big believer in service. And I think what you just said can inspire others to see that you can be of service. And it's not only about money. We have talents we can share, we have our time we can share, and of course, we can share our treasure too. But there's far more to that philanthropic mindset than just money. So tell me this. How do you navigate pushback, whether it's from within or without the company? When somebody's pushing back on Blake, how does that look?
Mm. One, I'm very competitive. I'm a very, very competitive person, and not in a nasty way. I would say I'm a collaborative, competitive person. So I like pushback. I like confrontation. I'm a very, you know, my family comes from Cuba. I come from a long line of Cuban people, and the stereotype is we're hotheads, we're loud, we talk fast, we talk over each other. My mother and I, people always think we're fighting, and we're not fighting. That's just how we talk to each other. So I would say a lot of times when I get pushback, and I try as I get older not to push back to the pushback, but I'm a fighter. I'm competitive. I like when you tell me something's not going to work. I like when you tell me I can't do something. So I would say I embrace it.
I like it. I know it's served me well in life where people say something can't happen, or I know with my health, I've had people say there's nothing we can do, or you can't do this. And my usual response, I don't know where it comes from, but I kind of get this feeling inside, and it comes out as, watch this. It's like it becomes a challenge of, let me see what I can just do with that you've just said.
Yeah.
So tell me this, what is the boldest vision for your company for the next 5 years? What's Blake going to do in the next 5 years with his business?
I love this. I love this. I love this. Okay, so little backstory. I did contract work for Berkshire Hathaway, and I spent about a year with them, and they taught me about monopolizing an industry. And in the beginning, I thought that was dirty. I thought that was a bad thing. And a small example is they bought a company called Clayton Homes. And Clayton Homes is the largest manufacturer of mobile homes. And they what I learned is they didn't buy it because they were interested in mobile homes. They bought it because they were interested in the entire industry of mobile homes, meaning they finance the land, they own the land, they make the house, they finance the house, they insure the house, they
Wow.
own the whole puzzle. And I know that may sound bad, but spending time within the organization, don't they're not trying to be bad. If anything, they're making it better. They're trying to make the process smoother, they're making it cheaper, they're making it streamlined. And so that stuck with me. So when I went out, and part of my checklist for looking at small businesses was the industry and was what industry could I potentially monopolize? And so I'm going to just make this bold declaration that I want to monopolize the entire fabric industry in that same sense of I want from the manufacturer overseas to the person who receives the fabric in their hand, I want to be a part of that whole process.
Hmm. Wow. That is a bold vision. Something tells me you'll do it, Blake. If
Thank you.
resources weren't a constraint, money, you had all of it, you had all the people you needed, what wild idea would you pursue?
Yep, this is something I think about often. So, low hanging fruit. The first thing is I volunteer at a farm, a local farm that basically does everything at cost. They're minimalist. They use a lot of volunteers and they essentially give the food to lower income communities. And a big reason I joined them is I have family in Cuba who's struggling for food. Literally, they don't eat every day, literally. And my goal in the short term is to take this concept I've learned and go build farms in Cuba and teach them and work with hopefully the government to let's feed everybody. So that's the small part of it all. One day I would love to, you know, do this across the world. And I know I have an uphill battle with big food, and that's okay. I'm willing to take that fight at some point. But I'd say I'm really passionate at the moment about helping people eat.
Yes, there's enough food to go around. We waste so much. I have this great story. I'm a donor and a big supporter of the Maui Pig Sanctuary, and it all started because a friend rescued a pig, a baby pig, and she was determined, she's an animal lover, and wanted that pig to not be bacon on somebody's plate. And I got involved and ended up talking with the person that is the owner of this pig sanctuary, which is a nonprofit, and just fell in love with what she was doing so much that I wanted to support her no matter what she did with this pig named Buttercream, whose first birthday was last week. We hadn't had a party with him. Well, what I love about these pigs get their food because companies that are, we know all the names of them, that they can't sell the food anymore, but the food's still good. They can donate it to the Maui Pig Sanctuary. And so these pigs eat pretty well, considering, right? Well, I like to think, well, I'm also in favor of feeding the pigs. I think if we can do that, there's a way we can help feed people that need food rather than a lot of our food that gets thrown out. So I love that you've got to focus on that. Like that will all come back to you so many times. You're inspiring people today. Thank you so much. Speaking of inspiration, when things get tough, what keeps Blake inspired?
I'm going to give you the most boring answer ever. Since I've gone on this journey and I've hit some real lows, just walking outside with no technology. That's it. It's as simple as just walking. I walk ridiculous amounts. No headphones, no phone, just walk and try not to think. Just let the thoughts come naturally. I
Yeah.
know it's so boring, but it's the
It's
truth.
not boring. I'm a big believer in walking. I think we talked about that. I do it as well. And, I think I know I gain a lot of inspiration from the wind, from a bird that flies by, from looking at the way a tree is moving that might seem so simple, but to me, it clears my head. It gets me in touch with what's really important in life, what the realities are of life. And I know that I'm a stronger person for doing it. And I love that you're sharing that with the viewers today. You know, if you could share, like, say somebody's watching this right now and they're feeling like what they've been doing they studied and they've got a good job and they're doing very well, but they've not followed their passion
Mm.
and they're about ready to do it. What words of wisdom would you share with someone that's starting to think about owning something or being a founder to follow their dream?
I'll say one of the biggest things that I heard that changed everything for me was don't take advice about something you want from someone who doesn't have it. I'll that changed everything. Once I heard someone tell me that, I then looked at everyone around me personally and I literally assessed, do I want what they have? No. Do they want what I? No. And it took me a little time, and thanks to the internet, I eventually found people on the internet who have already achieved the things that I want to achieve. And therefore, I just started listening to what they had to say.
Yes.
And that's low hanging fruit. Like that's the easiest thing you can do right now is get on the internet, find someone who's done what you want and listen to them.
Listen to you sharing wisdom here today with everyone. I love this. I have a question for you.
Yes.
If your younger self were to watch this podcast, what would you tell him?
I mentor young people, and it's a huge passion of mine we haven't even talked about. It's one of my favorite things on earth. I could go into that for hours. But what I tell all the young people right now is get into sales. Whether you like it or not, go knock on doors. Even if you do it for a year, 6 months, learn sales. It will completely change your life.
Wow. Listen to you today. I love it. You know, I have a passion about youth too. It's a great thing. They're our future, and sometimes we like to talk about the youth as I know in every generation I've heard it of. I'm sure they said it about mine. We're lazy. We're not applying ourselves. You know, when you're that age, you're trying to find your way, and having someone that's there to listen and guide is really, really important. Our youth are our future. Blake Serrano, it's been really great having you on the show today. Please tell the viewers a little about your business and how they find you.
Yes. So Sew-Snip.com, SEWSNIP. I'm all over Instagram. I mean, I try and post as much as I can, and I try to be as transparent and tell my story. Time to time, I'm a little controversial in the fabric industry. I like to talk trash about other fabric, Joanne, no names. But to be fair, I predicted that a year and a half before they went under. But anyway, yeah, sewsnip.com. I have an email list. I shoot an email out to my email list every day. I try and make it fun, light. I'm really just trying to help the fabric industry evolve. That's the plan here.
Love it. Blake, thank you for being on the show today.
Yes, Tom, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble, and I'll see you next time.